She was actually an org comm major. She was also our student worker, so I got to know her really, really well. She went on from Lock Haven to go to Penn State and is just about ready to finish up with her master's degree in communication. So I asked her to come here tonight, and even though I know that not all of you are planning to go to grad school, but to just give you a little bit of advice about how to be successful when you graduate, maybe some of the things you could do even before you graduate, because she was a very good student and I think had a good experience here, hopefully had a good experience here. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you to come on up and just explain, give her a round of applause. Just go ahead and explain, a little bit about why you majored, what you majored in, and what tools helped you and so forth. She's got the note cards up there. So
yes, I took my notes during this program here. So like she mentioned, I graduated in May of 2020. COVID, gotta love it. Graduated from my kitchen table in organizational and presentational, but I didn't always start out in that major. So I like to think of myself, I have a very nurturing and caring personality, which in my mind initially, that was like, okay, I need to be in the medical field. I'm going to apply to the PA program. Got in, thought, okay, I'm doing exactly what I meant to do. Grades did not reflect that. I thought I was going to love it. I thought wrong. So then I was rethinking and I was like, okay, psychology. I love thinking and trying to figure out why someone acts the way that they do, what has impacted them to respond the way that they do. So I'm gonna do that. I can't do that every day. So I got a life coach, gotta love them, and she said, okay, let's take a career test. Wouldn't you know, it said communications. She said you have to try it. And I'm like, communications, I automatically think broadcasting, like every other individual in the world. And I was like, nope, not for me. But she was right, and here I am. During my time at Lock Haven and the later half, which is when I was switched to communications, there are some classes that I kind of want to go over on what has been the most impactful for me, my time in the graduate program, my life as a business owner and someone who's full-time working, and just in life in general. The first one, fundamentals of public speaking and advanced public speaking. I'm doing it right now. We do it when we're in front of the boardroom, when you're doing it for a class, when you're talking to anyone. Speaking is always very important, being poised, knowing what you're going to say, and having intention behind everything that you do. One of the greatest pieces of advice that I took today was my nail polish. See, it's not distracting when I'm talking, you're looking at my face and not my red or neon nails. That has been nailed into my brain ever since Connie told me during the class, and when I see other people speaking, that's the first thing that I notice, if they have red nails or not. Second half is note cards, always being prepared, but not being so prepared that you sound rehearsed. So that's something that I still use, and also looking professionally whenever I know I'll be speaking in front of a group of people, because you always want a great first impression. Another class that has been of great use is interpersonal communication. Learning how to talk with people. You're not going to meet the same people throughout your time in classes, in the community, in your place of work. You need to communicate with people different ways in different scenarios. So that course kind of taught me how to do that, not only in the work setting, but then also in my relationship. We did the love language course. So in my relationship, I was like, okay, let's take it. And he's like, oh my gosh, another one of these tests. I'm like, interpersonal communications. They taught it best. And another class was small group communication. I've used this in graduate school, in my place of work, trying to brainstorm in the different ways that I had with Professor Gerton, and learning how to find the best solution to meet a goal or to meet an objective, and to do that collectively as a team working together, and not just someone solely just leading the team and kind of saying, who cares what you say. Another class is organizational communication. It gave me the knowledge and skills to successfully lead and communicate in an organization that I had with Connie, and my group we worked with Goodwill. So we went in, we interviewed the managers and the other staff there, asking what has worked, what hasn't worked, and ultimately gave them kind of just different recommendations from what we learned and from what we observed that would be best suited for that organization. It also taught me how to think, speak, and write clearly, and how to act as an ethical communicator with confidence. Another class is public relations. It taught me how to write concisely and understand the concepts of planning and executing effective communication. With any one of these classes, you're learning how to effectively communicate, whether that be within conversation, within your words, leading with attention. And public relations, it taught me to, I don't need to write a short story, it doesn't need to be the longest. The more concise and clear it can be, the better it is. And then it also taught me the where you should put certain parts in an article for it to be read or noticed. And I know she gave me something to remember it, and that's the part that I didn't remember. I was thinking so hard as I was thinking about this class, but I can't do it for the life of me, so I apologize. But it also taught me how to issue statements and to the public. Now, I don't do that on my everyday, but when an organization comes and says, hey, do you have experience in this? Do you know how to do it? Do you know the process? I'm able to say, yes, I do, and then do that for them. Another class is the Capstone Seminar. It's pretty much just a class on how to best market yourself. And that's where we worked on our resume and being able to get up in front of a room and pretty much sell yourself of why you're best for the job. It also, Professor Gerton also shared how even different tweaks in the words that you use in your resume, it makes all the difference. So saying like spearheaded A, B, and Z, it gives more of a punch and is more impactful to potentially another person applying for that same position. And the last class that really stuck out to me was social media strategy. That class was done online, and Professor Stringer was the professor for that class, and that was pretty much the introduction to what I do every day now, which is social media. I'm a business owner. My business is called Buzz Social Media, and it's what I do every day. So it kind of gave an overview of the analysis and the strategy portion of what I do. So when I was in my final year, I had to make the decision if I wanted to go to graduate school or not. And I was weighing back and forth. I had a meeting with Connie, and she said, it's gonna take work. C's aren't going to work, B's aren't even going to work. You need to really apply yourself, you need to put in the work, and it's A's. Like, you need to apply yourself and nothing less. So as I was doing my research of kind of what I wanted out of a program, I ended up applying to both Syracuse and Penn State, and I was thankfully accepted into both, but it made my decision hard on which way I wanted to go. In my mind, I couldn't beat the Penn State Alumni Network, which is what I ultimately ended up going with. Graduate school was just like Connie said, a lot of hard work, a lot of research that I had to read, a lot of papers I had to write, a lot of presentations I had to give. My classes, they weren't 50-minute long classes. They were evening classes, so full-time for graduate school for Penn State is 3 classes a week, each of which being 3 hours long of that one course. So you have that one class for 3 hours a week, and then you don't have it till the next week, which means a lot of content is covered in that. So you have to make sure you put in the work, because it's not a professor lecturing to you. My classes were a lot of discussion, so you had to participate in that discussion or else your participation score went down. So in my classes, I took things like theory, which I took COMM theory. I was able to apply that not only to have a background going into my COMM theory that I had in graduate school, but then also to my thesis project. And coming into graduate school, not everyone is right out of high school, I'm going in. There are people with 20 years of work underneath their belt, of working in different industries and different interests. So having a bunch of backgrounds coming into a room really makes the conversation interesting because someone else always has something different to bring. You're never hearing the same stories or the same background. Everyone comes from anywhere and you learn a lot just from listening. So that has been one of the greatest things that I got from graduate school. While I was in graduate school, the first year I was a graduate assistant, which helped paid for that first year. So I was a teacher's assistant, and then I also did research for future programs. So I did school full-time, I did the graduate assistant position 20 hours a week. I'm a business owner, so I work all the positions all week long. And then I am also engaged and I get married in 2 months. So a lot of things going on, but it just means you have to be organized and keep on top of your stuff, just like you would any other instance, just intensified at some moments. With graduate school, there was a requirement to have a thesis to complete the program. My program offered a creative thesis, which I ended up choosing. I didn't really want to write the 80 to 100 pages. So instead, I did a creative, which it could be poems, short stories, screenplays, photography, videography, you name it. Creative is so open-ended. And then you had to write a supporting essay of like 20 to 50 pages. That's the option I chose. Still a lot of work, as creatives know, but I didn't have to write as much. So I ended up doing and creating 11 short form videos for a nonprofit organization that I benefited from a lot of my life. I'm a child sexual abuse survivor, and I worked with a nonprofit that doesn't have the budget to create material that's needed for the community. And I'm grateful that my thesis committee supported me in that decision. And then I framed it and the conversation in a website. So after this, shameless plug if you want to take a look at it, it's stopcsalancaster.com. But so that in and of itself is like 3 classes. You have to, it's not a class, you don't have dedicated 3 hours a week to do it. So I had to put it on myself to make the time to work on it, or else I'm screwed and I'm going to have to pay another X amount of dollars for extra few semesters in order to finish it. But like Connie said, I needed to apply myself, and I did, and I worked my butt off, and I've been on the dean's list every semester. And that's not because it comes easy, it's because you have to put in the work and do the time and pay attention, or else it's very easy to slip away. So when coming here, I was asked to put together a few pieces of advice of what I've learned in this program going forward in graduate school, and pretty much what has helped me. And these are pieces of advice that you can apply to outside of school too. The first one being is create a checklist, whether that be the night before or the morning of, just of everything you need to get done. When we write down a checklist, it's very easy to put down 50 million things and think somehow, some way I'm gonna get all these done. But prioritize them to what you need to get done that day, and then you can do that every day throughout the week. So then you have that feeling of accomplishment when you're able to check something off, and it's like, okay, now to the next thing. And with so many things going on, we all don't just go to school. We have personal lives too. We have personal things that happen, and it's very easy to get distracted. So setting an intention to do that the night before or every morning is very helpful. Then my next piece of advice is to do something for yourself each day. Our days are very busy with schoolwork, work, personal stuff, that if you can do something for yourself each day, whether that be going for a walk, reading a chapter of a favorite book, journaling, or doing something for you, then that'll keep you from drowning in everyone else's expectations of you and everything else that's expected of you. So for me, I know that between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m., that's me time. So that's when I read, I do my devotional, I go to the gym, And that's my time before I have to answer to everybody else during the day. So I hope that everyone takes the opportunity to do that, because I could see a difference in just my readiness to get up in the morning and to really accomplish things. I'm more productive now once I take those 3 hours during the day to do something for myself than I was just aimlessly working. Another piece of advice is to don't be afraid to ask for help. During my time at Lock Haven, my dad was in and out of rehab. I had a child sexual abuse resentencing hearing. I was in a very unhealthy relationship, and there was a lot of stuff in my personal life that was affecting my education and my attention span in my classes. And just being open with my professors and letting them know what kind of was going on and that my head is somewhere else today. You'd be surprised at their willingness to help and how that was received. It wasn't like, okay, you better get your bootstraps on, get to work. Professors care, and that's why they're here. So they're willing to work with you, and that was a support that I knew I needed, but wasn't necessarily expecting it. Another piece, which would sound like any professor out there, is to take your classes seriously. Any assignment that you think, oh my gosh, another one of these stupid writing exercises, or another one of, again, I have to do this. But looking back, I'm like, wow, like, it's not as hard for me to write concisely. Like, I know how to not be repetitive and say additionally, or also, like, I have these tools that I've been given and taught during my time at Lock Haven that I'm now seeing that, okay, if I wasn't taught this, if I wasn't being told to repeatedly do this every class or do this exercise, it wouldn't be kind of routine work for me, and I would have to think about it more, or even work even harder. And then also to take opportunities, with that being internships, any type of experience. So that's like Bloomsburg, going for 2 weeks. Even the jobs, like I was the communication department assistant. I was creating attendance sheets, making copies, doing the little work that needed to be done in order for the professors to do their job. You could look at it and say, how is this going to help me going into the communications field? Like, it's not giving me anything. But it taught me to be adaptable and to work with others in order to, again, meet that common goal and common objective. An internship that I had that was like my, the internship that was required for me to graduate here, I was the social media manager for a trash company, not too glamorous, but it was a very toxic work environment, very inappropriate boss, and this happened after I graduated. I continued on, and that was very difficult, but it was just learning through that situation of my worth, and that I didn't have to be in that situation, even though that situation should have never happened and he's fired and things are done with. It taught me that my self-worth, which is how and why I started my business, was social media, which is, I've been doing it for 2 years. I plan to do it. I got my master's just in case if I wanted to kind of do something different and work in the corporate setting, that I would be able to go in and have a shot at a leader role. During my time at Lock Haven and beyond, I learned a lot, and I took what I learned from Lock Haven and applied it to graduate school and beyond. And it's amazing, just like the little things that we're told to do or what we're told to think about that we just kind of shrug off like, gotta be kidding me. That they actually matter and that I was actually able to apply them. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're like, oh my gosh, my parents are never going to be right. And then a situation comes and you're like, oh wow, they really were right. this is another one of those situations. And I feel like anybody who comes up here would also say the same thing. But if you apply yourself, and if you believe in yourself, and you know your worth and your value, and you do everything to work towards your goal and what you want to do, then you're absolutely unstoppable. Thank you.